Good afternoon, Pima County voters. And I thank you for joining us for this afternoon's forum with our two candidates for the office of Pima County Recorder. On behalf of our sponsor, the League of Women Voters of Greater Tucson, welcome to this forum. My name is Beverly Kloehn, and I am a League member. This afternoon, I will be the moderator. Before we begin, I'd like to share just a few very brief points. Our sponsor, the League, is celebrating its centennial this year. And for 100 years, we have maintained a nonpartisan organization, one in which we don't support, oppose, or endorse candidates or political parties. But the League is very diligent in the work that we do to educate, inform, and register eligible voters, in our case, in Southern Arizona. In full disclosure, I am not a resident of Pima County, so I will not be voting in this upcoming election. So I have no biases here this afternoon. But one important thing that I do need to let you know at this point is FCC rules prohibit the recording of this event in any way by anyone other than the League. Now I have the great pleasure of introducing all of you to the two candidates who are vying for the position of Pima County Recorder. First, we have Ms. Gabriella Cázares-Kelly, who is a co-founder of Indivisible Tohono that's focused on providing opportunities for education and civic engagement for the members of the Tohono O'odham Nation. She's committed to creating and transforming spaces to include those indigenous voices and those historically underrepresented in our country. She is the Democratic candidate. Thanks for being with us, Gabriella. And our second candidate is Mr. Benny White. He served on Pima County's Election Integrity Commission from 2008 until 2016, and the Secretary of State's Election Processes Commission as well. Benny's professional degree in law has focused specifically on election law and constitutional issues at the local, state, and federal levels. He is the Republican candidate. Thank you for joining us, Benny.
Thank you.
And before we officially begin our question and answer, I think it's important to explain a bit about today's format. We will have a total of 45 minutes with the candidates. Each of them will first share a 2-minute opening statement, and our timekeeper, Sue, is going to keep us all on track as far as time. It's important that you as the audience know, those of you who are viewing this on a Zoom webinar, do have the capability of asking questions. At the bottom of your screen, you will see a Q&A tab. When you have a question, just hit that and type it in. Our team member, Diana, is going to provide me with the questions that come through. Now, I will let you know that Diana is going to not send on those that are duplicate types of questions or those that are just not relevant to this afternoon's conversation, or perhaps if there's something inappropriate, she won't pass that along to me. But I can assure you she's going to pass on the tough questions for the candidates. I should also mention that those of you who are watching this afternoon on Facebook, unfortunately, there is not a way for us to pick up those questions, but I'm very confident that questions that you may have will be asked by other individuals and you will get your answers. Each candidate after their intro is going to be asked a question. Each will answer every question. They'll have 1 minute to do so. and I will alternate back and forth. And our assistant moderator, Kevin, is going to keep us, the three of us, on track to see who's up next. My job as moderator this afternoon is to facilitate a very open, civil, and respectful exchange of information. And with all public forums that you may be familiar, the decisions of the moderator are final. So let's begin. I don't see an audience question yet, but let me ask one that has been provided to me previously. There has been so much news about concerns related to mail-in voting in, oh, I'm sorry. Let me stop here. I haven't given either candidate an opportunity to say their 2-minute opening. So Gabriella, we're starting with you. Pardon me.
Thank you so much. Gabriella Cázares-Kelly, Amjit. Good day, my name is Gabriella Cázares-Kelly. I'm from the communities of Bisinmo'o and Cook, which are located on the Tohono O'odham Nation right here in beautiful Pima County. I'm an educator, community organizer, proud dues-paying union sister, and I'm excited for trying to make voter registration and early voting as easy, fast, and accessible as possible. Some of the things that I'd like to see here in Pima County are things that other counties are already thriving with, such as the text message and email notifications when your ballots are sent out to you you automatically receive those and then receive a text message to confirm that your vote has been counted. Making sure that we have a commitment to community, that we are reaching out to communities that are often underrepresented. We want to make sure that our website is accessible and easy to use. I really want to make sure that we are demystifying the process and making everything, all of our communications from the recorder's office as clear and concise as possible, whether that be in multiple languages or whether it simply be just using common language. I also want to make sure that we are providing practical solutions such as ballot drop boxes and other forms of community-based solutions that help more people participate in this system. So I look forward to coming up with some creative ideas. Thank you.
Thank you, Gabriella. And Benny, your opening statement, please, if you would unmute.
Thank you very much. I appreciate very much the league hosting this. I think this will probably be the only opportunity for voters in Pima County to evaluate the two candidates that are asking for your vote for Pima County Recorder. And I ask everyone, as you listen to this discussion and a debate to a certain extent, please try to determine who's the best qualified, the most experienced, and the most knowledgeable about the roles and responsibilities of the Pima County Recorder, and who will best serve the needs of all the citizens of Pima County. I have 12 years of experience in all aspects of elections. I've been involved in writing requirements for election systems, buying the equipment, testing the equipment, counting ballots, watching all the processes that are involved in the mail ballot process, verifying signatures, verifying provisional ballots. I have audited the elections, several elections over the years, both the recorder side of the house and the elections department. I've worked with the secretaries of state on our elections procedures manual for 8 years, trying to improve that manual, make sure that it's consistent with the law. And I have extensive knowledge of all the laws and regulations and rules that apply to both the recorder side of the house and the election side with respect to recording all the documents that have to be recorded by law, and all the election administration. So again, if you need any additional information on me, that can be found at bennyforrecorder.com. But please pay attention, select the most qualified candidate. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Benny. And since I had gotten ahead of myself a bit earlier, I guess I can go into the questioning from our audience at this time. And we do have some here that Diana has forwarded. I'm going to pose this first question to Gabriella. And then Benny will have an opportunity to answer as well. What specifically are your qualifications to run for an election? What experience have you had managing a large organization like the Recorder's Office? Gabriella?
I have a background in, my bachelor's is from the University of Arizona, and I have a master's in educational leadership from Northern Arizona University that was specifically discussing institutional change and how to incorporate institutional change and reach out to stakeholders and build positive progress within an office. So this is an area where I do have some need for growth, but I think that anytime you are looking for putting someone in a position, we need to think about them growing into that position and being able to see, have a new perspective on what might have been not working. And we really need to make sure that we have a vision from outside, making sure that we are able to identify areas of improvement for the office.
Thank you. And Mr. White, the same question, if you'll unmute yourself. Mr. White? We seem to be experiencing a slight technical difficulty, as they say in the business, and we do have Mr. White back. Thank you. Sorry for that, Benny.
Someone had a power pole out on Campbell, and we had a power failure here at my house, so I'm back.
Oh no! Okay, let me do this. Let me ask the question that Gabriella answered, and I'll pose it to you. What specifically are your qualifications to run an election, and what experience have you had managing a large organization like the Recorder's Office? Mr. White.
I appreciate the opportunity to recover here a little bit. As I said, I've been involved in election oversight for 12 years and with the Election Procedures Manual Secretary of State level for 8 years. In addition to that experience, I have 21 years of military experience where I managed organizations up to 150 people, multi-billion dollars worth of equipment, multi-million dollars worth of annual budgets. So the recorder staff currently is about 42 people, and that changes from time to time because of the elections. They have to get temporary people, but I have a lot of experience in dealing with large groups of people through supervisors, and that situation will continue when I'm elected as recorder.
Okay, Mr. White, I'm going to ask you to respond to this question first. Let's see. What do you think about getting rid of provisional ballots, which take so long to verify and count after Election Day?
Well, we are forced by federal law, and we want to provide provisional ballots for everyone who wants to vote. And those are caused by people that primarily by people that don't keep their voter registration records up to date. They show up at a polling place and their permanent or their present residence does not agree with what's in the register. That can be eliminated in great part if we transition vote centers instead of precinct polling places. That way, anybody that shows up at any vote center can get the appropriate ballot. If they don't live at the address that's in the current voter registration, that can be changed on the spot, and that will eliminate about 95 to 98% of the provisional ballots.
Thank you. And Gabriella, what is your position on provisional ballots?
Provisional ballots are a safety measure to make sure that we are able to cast ballots if there's a problem. And so a lot of people think that they don't count. They absolutely do. We do count them as long as it's eligible. But moving towards a vote center model, such as what other counties have done, where instead of having one polling location, you might have 40 different locations where you can go in one day, eliminates the need for a provisional ballot in the most part. Also, initiatives such as same-day voter registration would also benefit this issue as well. And we need to make sure that we're dispelling the myth that they're not counted. That's really important.
Thank you. And Gabriella, this question will be answered by you first, please. Does Pima County currently have the technology infrastructure to make the efficient changes in the election system?
Yeah, that is definitely something that we have at this time. A lot of the, such as like the text message confirmation system alone, we are already scanning ballots, and it's not that much more difficult to institute that additional technology. However, we are struggling in some other areas. We do have an outdated website that is really PDF heavy, which is essentially pictures, which makes it really difficult for you or I to cut and paste information and share that out to the masses. We also have trouble communicating with constituents, and so those are areas of growth for the county recorder's office, definitely.
Okay. Mr. White, the question relates to whether or not Pima County currently has the technology infrastructure to make efficient changes.
We certainly have that capability within the larger community, maybe not within the county itself or within the recorder's office. I've worked with Ann Rodriguez for a number of years on trying to get e-poll books installed into our precinct polling places so that we would have a real-time interface between the voter registration when the voter shows up at the precinct polling place and the real-time database. The problem has been that the vendors of those devices and the software want to put all that information in the cloud. FAN has resisted that, I think with good reason, because of the security issues involved. But I think we have the expertise in the university and our software application developers here in the community to solve a lot of those problems.
Thank you. And Benny, you will take this question first, please. Let's see. Oh, here it is. Being new to Tucson, I've come to learn and appreciate the efficient, professional, and competent manner of the current Pima County Recorder has led and directed the office. However, what I've come to value the most is the nonpartisan manner of the current recorder. What will you do specifically to support all voters, in particular communities of color and young voters, to have every opportunity to vote?
Well, if you ask anyone that I have worked with over my involvement in elections, they will tell you that I have always been nonpartisan in every decision, every action that I have taken. The law is colorblind. Everyone should be treated equally and fairly in accordance with the law. And there can't be any deviation from that with elections because everyone has to be treated the same. So I will make sure that that is the policy of the office and that all of the staff understands that. We have a very professional staff. I intend to keep most of those people on board. I hope they will continue to work with me and solve these problems.
Thank you. Gabriella, do you need me to repeat the question?
No, I'm okay.
Thank you.
In order for us to address these issues, making sure that we are including more people, we first have to actually acknowledge that there are systemic barriers that exist that make it so that some people struggle more to be able to register to vote or to participate or to receive the education needed for them to participate and cast their ballot, to exercise their right. And so we need to make sure that we are addressing those, identifying those, and working with the communities that have been impacted to try to move past that. That includes making sure that we are connecting with our school boards, that we are interacting with communities of color that have been disproportionately impacted by these issues, and we have to continue to talk about it. You cannot oppress anyone when you are fighting for everyone.
Thank you. Gabriella, you'll be up for this next question too. What is your opinion on the petition delivered to the Pima County Board of Supervisors requesting an emergency early voting site on the Pasquayaqui Reservation?
I absolutely support the Pasquayaquis' efforts. As you know, I am a member of the Tohono O'odham Nation, and they, along with my tribe, are the first people of these lands. You are on O'odham and Yaqui lands if you are in Pima County, and we have a responsibility to our Native communities to ensure that we are doing everything that we can to ensure that they are able to participate in the same manner that everyone else is. When we talk about having rights, Native Americans in Arizona, we didn't have the right until 1948, and it took us suing the state of Arizona. We didn't have protections until 1965. My grandmother, who didn't speak English, did not have language protections until 1975. And we have to take this history into account when we talk about the needs of these communities.
Thank you. Benny, the same question, please.
Well, I have tremendous respect for both the Tohono O'odham and the Pasquayaqui nations as sovereign nations. They have their own constitution, their own government, their own election officials. I will work aggressively with both of those communities to discover any types of problems that they have, either with voter registration or voting. All of these concerns about where an early voting site is going to be are made in the context of budgetary considerations and trying to provide the best service for all of the citizens of Pima County. My understanding is that the Pasquayaqui site was very low frequency voting, and the decision was made that there was a better location for that resource.
Thank you. And we'll give this next question to you as well. What is the role of the recorder in disqualifying propositions brought to the ballot by citizens? And I guess there's a second part here. What is your opinion on the impact Pima County had on preventing the Second Chances Rehabilitation and Public Safety Act to be on the upcoming ballot?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that question, the first part of your statement?
Absolutely. What is the role of the recorder in disqualifying propositions brought to the ballot by citizens?
Okay, that is controlled under Title 19. And what happens there is that the propositions for a statewide measure are submitted first to the Secretary of State, who counts the number of signatures there to make sure that they meet the minimum. Then those petitions are handed off to the recorder, where they go through a random sample first to make sure that the voters on the petition are qualified electors and they're qualified to vote on whatever measure it is that is being challenged. That's a very time-consuming effort on the part of the recorder for a statewide measure. There's several thousand signatures that have to be checked, but that's essentially the process that's followed.
Okay, the second, I'm going to ask you the second part of the question as well, because it does seem to be related. What is your opinion on the impact Pima County had on preventing the Second Chances Rehabilitation and Public Safety Act to be on the upcoming ballot?
I wasn't in the office when those verifications were made, but it has been my experience over 25 years of working with FAN and her professional staff that they follow the law and comply with all the regulations. And I have to assume in lieu of a challenge to their actions that that's what they did in this case as well.
Okay, thank you. Let's see, Ms. Cázares-Kelly, I will ask you the same question. Let me ask the first part again. What is your opinion? Oh no, what is the role of the recorder in disqualifying propositions brought to the ballot by citizens?
The role of the recorder's office is to verify signatures for voter initiatives. And if there was an issue, such as was the case with this particular situation, where a random sampling did not meet the qualifications and 14 out of 15 recorders did say that we should take a closer look, we should have taken a look. We should have continued to make sure that voters have their voices heard. And if it did not qualify based on the number of actual signatures versus a sampling, that is a really important distinction, and that is the role of the recorder to make sure that we are empowering our community to present those voter initiatives because we do want that civic engagement.
Thank you. And I'll pose this next question to you first as well. First is a statement. There is quite a bit of apathy from people who don't register to vote at all. What will you do to encourage more Pima County residents to register to vote?
So that's something that I've been doing, and that's actually how I came to be in this space, is simply by registering people to vote. And typically registering people who have been disproportionately impacted by systemic barriers that prevent them from voting. Native communities, rural communities, college students. I have been talking with these groups and continue to about how their vote, especially locally, impacts the larger system and how it impacts their life. One of the things that I often share is about my personal journey, my grandmother's right to vote, Catherine Jose Maria.
You seem to have a technical difficulty.
Oh.
I'm here. I believe we are back. Okay.
Ms. Cázares-Kelly gets a chance to complete her answer before the disruption.
Oh, absolutely. Ms. Cázares-Kelly?
I think I was only a few seconds away from answering the question about reaching out to apathetic voters. But that is something that I'm continuously doing. And if you look at my campaign numbers, you'll actually see that we had evidence of low propensity voters turn out for my primary election. So we're already making that change. Thank
Excellent. You. And Benny, the same question. It has to do with apathy of people who just don't want to register at all, and what you will do to encourage more residents to register to vote.
Well, I intend to use our public service announcements and interviews with the media and presence on the radio, a lot of different kinds of things to inform voters of a lot of things. The importance of voting, the requirement to be registered to vote, and the requirement to be properly registered, to update your voter registration when you change your address or you change political parties or you get married or divorced and change your names, all those kind of things. I've walked to about 26,000 houses at this point. And I find that about 25 to 30% of our voters, our citizens, are not registered to vote. And if in poverty areas where people are economically challenged, that's a greater problem. And that's something that we can need to continue to work on, trying to educate people about the importance of voting and the importance of registering.
Thank you. I guess this really leads into the question about getting people to vote as well. What's your point of view about PEVL, and what plans do you have to make it easier for Pima County residents to sign up?
Well, there are about 85% of Democrats currently are subscribed to the PEVL, and about 75% of Republicans. It's a very popular and very convenient method of voting. A lot of people just don't have secure mails or make different decisions about how to vote. About 25% of our people decide they want to go to the polls because they don't have secure voting or secure mail at their residence, or they live in a remote area where the mailboxes may not be secured. So I will continue to encourage people to use the mail voting system, but I want to make sure that it is secure. I'm a little concerned about the total dependence on the mail system and an all mail system where nobody gets to go to the polls and everybody has to vote by mail. So those are things that we'll continue to have discussions about as the campaign goes forward.
Thank you. Gabriella?
The other day, I had a meeting where people were talking about the PEVL, over and over, using the word PEVL. And someone in the chat wrote, "Can you tell me more about the PEVL? P-E-B-B-L-E." And I think that part of that is making sure that we're demystifying what all of these terms are, making sure that we're talking to people in plain language that they can understand, making sure that we have more sites and more people trained to help with people who have voter registration questions. The Tohono O'odham Nation, for example, is the size of Connecticut. It has one post office, and there are only 3 places where you can pick up voter registration forms at this time. Making sure that we are working with communities to ensure that they understand what the difference is between voting in person, voting by mail, emergency voting, and voting on election day. Those are really important things that we need to make sure that we are explaining to people as we change the culture around voting.
Thank you. There's been so much news about concerns related to mail-in voting in this fall's election. I think we've all heard it now. What advice do you have for Pima County voters on this topic?
It's very important to stay calm. At this time, we do not have a huge concern. There's a slight concern. Any delays that we see are only a couple of days. We're not seeing weeks on end. And please remember that we have been participating in permanent early voting and vote by mail for about 20 years here in Arizona. You will get your ballot on October 7th. It will be mailed out to you. And you'll have 27 days for you to return it either in person at an early voting site, an emergency voting site, or on election day. But if you are really concerned, either pop it in the mail or drop it off in person. But we're doing really great, and we're really excited because this is we're seeing so many people concerned about this. And that's a good problem to have.
Thank you. Betty, the same question, please.
Well, the first thing I'd like to say is that in Pima County, we do have an extraordinary history of conducting a lot of our elections by mail. About 80% of our ballots come in by mail, and people are very satisfied with that. I have heard comments about people saying, I've got to get off the pedal, or I've got to get, change my voter registration, those kind of things. Please don't do that. We need everyone to vote. Another question that comes up is, should I put a stamp on my mail ballot to make sure that it gets back? Please don't do that either. That will disrupt the mail ballot processing. But get those ballots back, make a decision on who the qualified candidates are, make the marks on the ballot and send them back. Right now, the post office is telling us that they'd like to have all those ballots back in the mail by Tuesday before the election. So give it about a week. If you can't do that, you can drop it off at any early voting site, any recorder site, or on election day at any polling place.
Thank you. And something's come in about the Public Records Division of the Recorder's Office. Most of us relate the Recorder's Office to voting registration and voting, but another major responsibility is the Public Records Division. Please explain what that is and what they do, and it's important to the broader role of the Recorder's Office. Benny, we'll start with you.
It's extremely important because all of the real property records, the transfers of property has to be recorded, and all of those are public records. That involves titles, deeds, mortgages, liens, judgments, assessments. Anytime a property ownership is in dispute in a litigation, that has to be recorded as well. And all of those things are pretty well controlled by statutes in Title 11 that tell how much can be charged for the recording, what has to be done, what format the document has to be in. All the maps of subdivisions and plats have to be recorded, and all of those things have to be archived so that they're available over the next 100 years or so. So that's very important for the economy.
Ms. Cázares-Kelly?
To piggyback off of that, it's also important for us to make sure that we are making that information on what is available. I think the majority of people, especially when I began this campaign, had absolutely no idea what the Recorder's Office does. And to make sure that we are sharing that information, that is where you can go and you can receive those records. You do have to put in requests, and you do have to pay for some services, but making sure that we're streamlining that information so that it's easily accessible for people who need it, so that they are able to search records. And, you know, in other places, we have recording services available in libraries and public libraries. We think about Ajo, Arizona, which is on the very far west end of the county. You know, how are they getting those services?
Thank you. And let's see. I think we have one last question here in terms of our timing. During the last presidential election, even primaries this year, we saw various policies and procedures used that suppressed voter turnout in many areas of the country. And that included, you know, requiring a street address where people really didn't have that. They didn't use that in those areas. Eliminating minority voters arbitrarily without any kind of notification, and eliminating large numbers of voting sites. How will you assure Pima County voters this will not happen if you are elected?
I think I'm first on this one.
Oh, okay. I didn't see Kevin sign. I'm very sorry.
The Director of Elections, Brad Nelson, has already stated that we're going to have an adequate number of polling places. It'll be about the same number as we've had in other presidential election years, so that really is not a concern. I would just caution people to take some of that information that we get over the internet about a lot of problems that are apparent nationwide and kind of cast them aside, because we really don't do those things here in Arizona. We have laws that protect the voters. We do not suppress voters. We don't choose people by minorities. We don't know the races of people. All of those concerns, I think, are really misplaced when it comes to voting in Arizona and voting in Pima County.
Thank you. And the last answer will go to Gabriella.
I wildly disagree with that. I think that voter suppression tactics are here in Arizona. We have seen the state legislature propose PO boxes be inadequate areas for addresses. Which primarily impacts rural communities and tribal communities. We have seen voter ID laws that are pushed that really cause harm to people who live an hour and a half to 2 hours away from the closest motor vehicle division. And currently, we're talking about ballot harvesting, where your next door neighbor who may need help, and have concerns about being able to get their ballot to a safe location, we're not able to help them. And so we've really boxed ourselves in with practical concerns. And I think that that is absolutely untrue. It definitely has voter suppression.
Okay, thank you very much. I am going to say that that's all the time we have for questions coming in. I think it's given us a great idea about what's on voters' minds, and you as voters, because I don't vote in Pima County, what the candidates hope to address. And I really thank everyone for being with us this afternoon. Now for closing statements from each candidate. You will have 1 minute. I know you've got a lot to say, but there's 1 minute and I'm sure you can do it. And we're going to start with Mr. White.
Well, again, thank you very much for hosting this, and for all the viewers that sat through this. I think it's given you a good opportunity to look at who's the most qualified, who has the most experience dealing with both the recording side of the House and the election voter registration issues. I have an extensive knowledge of the law. I have a law degree, and I'll be able to use that to make sure that we comply with all of the laws, both at the federal level and the state level, so that we're not caught up in lawsuits that cause the election results to be questioned over a period of possibly weeks or months. And if you need any more information about me, please go to bennyforrecorder.com, and there, I think all of your answers can be found there. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And Ms. Cázares-Kelly, you will have your 1 minute closing statement.
Thank you all for having us here today. I think these forums are very important to make sure that we are having these conversations and talking about these important issues that impact us in the most fundamental of ways. We constantly need to be talking about protecting our right to vote. I do not tell people that voting is the most important thing you can do. I think it's the least that you can do if you have the privilege. And unfortunately, we're at a time where not everyone does have that privilege. And we need to continue to work and talk about and explore these issues and remove these systemic barriers that keep people from participating. Unfortunately, right now, my website is under some maintenance, but if you would like to learn more about me, please send me an email at gabriella4recorder@gmail.com. And I will put a link in for donations. This is a grassroots campaign, and we are doing our very best to shake things up. Thank you.
Well, thank you everyone for your participation and questions this afternoon. I'm so sorry we didn't have more time to get to more questions, but again, the candidates have indicated how you can get in touch with them directly if your questions have not been answered. And thank you, Benny, Gabriella, for your time this afternoon. Just continue to run a good and civil race. And finally, for everybody, request an early ballot, complete it early. Take it to an early voting site, and you can check the Recorder's Office website for those locations and times, and or mail your ballot, I shouldn't say or mail your ballot early, or show up at your polling place on Tuesday, November 3rd. And most importantly, in addition to yourself, tell everyone you know to get out and vote, because it's a hard-fought right and a really awesome responsibility. Thanks everyone for joining us this afternoon. This has been the PC Recorder Candidate Forum. Thank you.